I think overall, that's the issue a lot of us have with the Warriors front office, right? It's like, it's not clear exactly what the vision is all the time. So
look up in the sky and see the banners. You know what their vision is?
They had that,
5 straight trips to the finals, so we don't know what their vision is. The disrespect.
No,
I'm pretty happy we have a draft guru on during these troubling times for Dub Nation. If people don't know, we have a pretty important draft coming up. 7th pick, 14th pick, this is pretty groundbreaking stuff that we're privy to as members of Dub Nation. Can you imagine other franchises who don't have 2 first-round picks? It's insane, right? But with all this consternation, we need somebody to help us sift through all the noise, all the fake news out there. We've got somebody named Evan Zamir. Folks who know Golden State of Mind, he's an OG. Been spreading the good word of Warriors basketball for a long time. Evan, for those who don't know you, what would you say is your quintessential story of Warriors fandom?
Oh boy. You mean like a story that I have of being a Warriors fan, like a particular story? Well, I was at the game where they booed Joe Lacob at Oracle when they retired Chris Mullins' jersey. And it was right after the Monta trade. So that's probably way up there.
So your heart is with the team, but my question is, were you booing with them?
Oh, no. I was even back then, it was sort of nascent. I think I was in my early analytics stage. And it was funny because when was that? Was it 2012, right?
Around there, I think so.
2012.
Yeah.
So I think I had up until 2010, maybe 2009, I was a big Monta fan, and a big Warriors fan, way before that. But I did get into the whole analytics and stats thing around that time, and kind of, changed my opinion fairly drastically of Monta Ellis. And so by the time that trade came around, I mean, I was squarely in the camp that thought it was a good idea, but I'd say 95% of that crowd just was, how could you do that to us? And really it was a spectacle. I never seen anything like that, booing the owner of the team. That was
Monta was a hero, he was a hero. I personally was very upset. I wasn't in the building that night, but I was one of the fans who didn't know what the heck they were talking about. And I guess there may be some more fans that you may feel that way about this time around, considering that last year you were quite vocal at the Warriors should have drafted LaMelo Ball over James Wiseman at the 2 spot. How are you feeling about that today?
Yeah, people should go find that video because I think I called that one pretty well. So I will say this, my top 2, I said on that video last year, I had LaMelo and Ant. And I think that's exactly, I wasn't as high on Halliburton. I probably mentioned that, but but if it were me, the only thing I'd say is at that time, it's a little bit similar situation where I kind of thought, should we be trading this pick? So I don't know what the trades that were out there, right? Even at that time, I thought, well, if we could get Marcus Smart and something, and swap I think Boston had number 13 or something like that. I thought that might have been a good trade. So who knows? I might have been a terrible GM and made that trade and then not. But I think I would have waited to see who was taken at number 1, before doing that. Okay. And my gut tells me I would have taken LaMelo because I just really, I liked him. I mean, I thought he was going to be, a super intriguing player. So, what might have been, right?
Whoa, we're already at what might have been stage. So you're saying you would boo Joe Lacob right now?
No, I it's just that it's so funny. We could get into it, but the narratives and everything like that, they just, at that time it was it's best fit. LaMelo can't play with Steph. And then it became when it's morphed, right? So the backs now, the sort of the narrative going backwards, right? The retcon, if you will, like in the comics terms, is like it was never about fit. It was like, we're going to take the best player long term or something like that. And it's hard to square with like what we're talking about now, because going forward now you have to deal with the fact that you took Wiseman, right? So it's just a totally different place. Like if we had taken LaMelo, I mean, it just would be obviously like so much easier to do a lot of these decisions, right? Like you're looking at it now, maybe the team would have been better and not had, maybe wouldn't have the 14th pick. I guess we still would have had the 7th pick. So, but it becomes a different ballgame, but it's history. I mean, it is what it is.
I'm a little bit scared, Daniel, to be honest. I'm a little bit nervous. Joey Lightyears has done pretty swell for us since he's been here. And I remember back when the trade happened, I was actually more upset about losing Udo, who is now
he was great.
Team USA in the Olympic warm-ups. But
we could use him.
We could use him. But
everyone just closed down the stream just now. Everyone just clicked X on the thing where I'm done with his interview.
Prime Efe Udo. We could use a prime Efe Udo.
Well, yeah, but the thing is about it all was that, when I think Evan and I probably landed at the Golden State of Mind around the same time, where Monta was the sort of perfect poster child to sell advanced stats to people who were, beyond a casual enough watcher to where they're like going out of their way to talk about it on the internet forum. With that mindset of understanding what makes a player good or bad versus like putting points up on the board, there's just so much uncertainty with these young picks. Like Wiseman had some legitimate flashes where he was, full break pressing, you blocking shots and then taking it the other way and like spinning through traffic, power dunking, and then Kerr sort of tweaked it a little bit to where he was finishing the lob in the pick and roll game really well. I still sort of believe that we can do the bridge gap and reload. So coming in 7 and 14, I think now, just like always with the draft, is that I just want the best player available. And if your opinion is really that that's James Wiseman or whoever it's going to be this year, okay. But, we're all sort of watching the front office at this point. And I think, especially with Dunleavy, who has sort of this like anti-good vibe effect on the fan base for some reason. Maybe it's just me, but I don't know. But Dunleavy there and Schlenk going to Atlanta, the Warriors have not had great picks, and they have found success scraping the bottom of the barrel. But, I wrote this recently too, is that this is no longer a time for taking free flyers on a guy like Jacob Evans because you think he looks more ready. This is high stakes, take the best player that you think you can get at that position. And of course, there will be some disagreement about that. But as far as where I am right now, I'm really nervous that the front office can pull it off. Not so much because they're like incompetent bumblers, but it's really, really hard. I think a lot of really smart people look at a lot of the same information and come up with a really widely different set of outcomes and suggested tiers. So like every other Warriors fan, I think, if you could trade the picks and some filler for a star, you would do that. But if we're just riding into the draft with the picks we got, I'm nervous.
Lots of process there. Okay, so then if we're talking about potentially who we can get, what about you and Evan? Who do you see the Dubs getting at the 7 and 14 if they keep the picks?
Who do I see them getting, or who do I want them to
Let's
get?
start with who you see them getting. And then let's kind of who you want them to get.
I mean, look, honestly, like, it's hard for me to even, like, I only know kind of what I hear a little bit, and like from some people who, say they know people, and what I read in mock drafts and stuff like that. And I see what almost like 99% of the mock drafts have us taking the win now the quote unquote win now guys, which usually means the old guys. I think I said it's like we're back to last draft. Like I think I said this last year, specifically with respect to Melo, that win now guy, just because they're older, that doesn't necessarily mean they're a better player, right? They're probably closer to their ceiling. And, we saw, I mean, if you look at this past draft, right, the best rookies were a lot of the younger guys. LaMelo and Patrick Williams and Okoro started the whole season. Obi Toppin barely, he didn't play much, and he was like 23.
Hey, don't make fun of Patrick Murray's pick like that.
I'm just saying I was here. I warned you guys. But even Halliburton, Sadiq Bey were sophomores. Emmanuel Quickly, sophomore. Isaiah Stewart, a young freshman. Like it wasn't all the old guys, who were the best players. I'd say maybe Desmond Bane was, and that's a guy I liked. I thought he was a legit older guy. I don't really see a Desmond Bane in this draft. I think people want that to be like a Corey Kispert or someone like that. So if we look at the guys, let's talk about the guys that we all have heard associated with the Warriors, right? It's at this point, it's like James Bouknight, Davion Mitchell, Corey Kispert. Those are kind of the main three. I keep hearing. A few other ones are maybe a Trey Murphy from Virginia is one I've heard a little bit. I think 14 is a little bit high. I could see them taking Kispert at 14. Personally, I'd probably take Murphy. I think I have him higher on my board over Kispert. I might even throw like a Joe Wieskamp there. I think this is too high to take these guys. So let's talk about Bouknight and Davion Mitchell. I liked James Bouknight last year. Okay, so like I feel like the guy who was in pretty early. I thought he should be a first rounder last year. And everybody jumped on the bandwagon really quick this year. But for me, he didn't like jump up that much. Like I thought he was like a guy who was pretty intriguing because, he's got that bounce, super athletic. And that's what sticks out, right? Like highlight dunks that are just really amazing, cutting off the ball. But I think what NBA teams said last year was like, well, that's nice, but like is he going to defend? And is he going to make plays, right? So he should probably come back. He thought about coming out, but, decided to come back. He got a little bit bigger, he looks like he put on maybe 5 to 10 pounds of muscle. So maybe his defense improved a little bit. I don't think he really you expect some improvement when guys come back, right? So I don't think he moved. I mean, I'm going to have him somewhere late lottery, mid first. And I think last year I would have honestly had him like in the late 20s. I thought he was would have been a first round pick for me last year. So I'm going to move him up like maybe 10 spots. But even some of that feels a little bit forced just because like everybody else has gotten so high on him. And my thing is I take into account improvement and if you look at let's say Halliburton, he really improved from freshman to sophomore year. Biggest criticisms against him were that his usage was really super low, right? And he doubled it. That was a pretty big jump. Some guys come back and they don't really do anything different. So to me, if you're doing a good job in projecting, you should be able to project a guy from his freshman to sophomore year. You should take into account that these guys do get older, right? And they improve. And if you're radically changing from year to year where you have guys, I think Obi Toppin was a prime example. Nobody had him, very few had him freshman year, first round, right? Nobody talked about him. And the next year, 3 games into the season, he's a top 5 pick. That didn't make any sense to me at the time, right? And I think you're kind of seeing like the ramifications of something like that. So Bouknight, I think the question is, if you're taking him at 7, like what is the goal of taking Bouknight that high? What are you trying to get out of him? He's not necessarily a great shooter. I've looked into, if you look at his 3-point percentage, it's not that great. If you look into his synergy stats, I had tweeted out something today, like they're not super impressive. He's primarily like a transition guy and a guy who cuts to the basket. He's probably more of an isolation scorer type of guy. I don't know how well he's going to play off the ball. And the question to me really is like, is it worth it to take that guy at 7 when you have another guy, Jordan Poole, who I'm also not a huge fan of at this point? I mean, I like Jordan. I really did not like Jordan Poole. I did not like that pick at all when it happened. I thought they should have taken Nicholas Claxton, which also would have been a great pick in retrospect, because then we wouldn't have needed Wiseman. So they got Poole, and Poole's actually gotten better. And I think Bouknight may be somewhat of an improvement, but it may not happen next year. So it may come to pass that they would take Bouknight and Poole would be getting those minutes anyway. And then to me, that would be kind of a lost pick. And it just makes you wonder, like, if Bouknight, if he's kind of a Jordan Clarkson type of guy, like, can we go out and get maybe someone? Can we get Karis LeVert maybe? Like, is there some kind of trade where you could bring in a guy who can do that kind of stuff now, or just rely on Jordan Poole maybe? When you have a chance at a 7th pick, do you really want to spend it to get like a bucket getter kind of guy who maybe at this point is a bit overrated? I'm not sold on that. It's not the worst outcome, but I think the worst outcome is the next guy we'll talk about, Davion Mitchell, which to me, I think that's the legitimately like the worst outcome to me is Davion Mitchell at 7. I think that's just like obscenely high for a guy who again was not in anybody's radar really in terms of even a 1st-round pick last year. It's almost certain that you could trade these 2 draft picks with or without Wiseman and probably get some like rookie, a guy on a rookie contract that's better right now, right? Like you might be able to trade for Devonte Graham, right, with the 14th pick or 7th pick, and next year he's better, right, than a rookie coming in. I mean, that's just like kind of the physics of how these things work.
Yeah.
But so like I don't like the idea of then saying like we're going to use these picks to win now, and that means we're going to take Davion Mitchell and Corey Kispert because those were the guy, like the draft picks we like. It's just like, oh, we're in this situation where we have these 2 draft picks, so we gotta just like, even if it's a reach, I have Davion Mitchell like way lower than a lot of people. I have him like in the mid-20s, right? And that's even higher from where I had him before, honestly. Before the tournament, I would not have had him in the 1st round. And I bet you a lot of people would not have had him in the 1st round. And now, so I don't think it's great to like process, so to speak, to say, well, this is how these are the cards we were dealt, and we just got to take the win now guys. And it sucks that it's 7 and 14. I think either you decide to trade the picks for guys who can win now, like legit guys who can win now. Just to throw out a name, like a Larry Nance from Cleveland, right? That guy probably come in now and help us win because he's better next year than these draft picks. If you're going to use the draft picks, my philosophy is like you should get the value from the picks. And there's 2 things. One is you want a guy who has like a high ceiling, a fairly high ceiling, but ideally can be competent next year. Like do something. They're not going to set the world on fire, but maybe help you out a little bit, but they have a higher ceiling. And the other part that's important to think about is a trade may come up later in the season, like at the trade deadline. So if you're sitting there having drafted Davion Mitchell and Corey Kispert, are those good assets to have in a trade? You're like, hey man, we got James Wiseman, we got Davion Mitchell and Corey Kispert, give us Bradley Beal. No, that's not going to be good. But if you take I think if you take like a Moses Moody or another young guy, some of these other young guys that I like maybe a Jaden Springer or even like a Keon Johnson or Josh Giddey, who like show a lot of talent early on. Last year, it might've been like a Patrick Williams type, right? That may help you in a trade later. So there may not be a trade that develops right now, but if you lock yourself into these win now guys, it could really hurt. Like in 6 months, we could be sitting here like, man, if we had taken that guy, that would have been a great trade chip,
You're probably going to do that no matter what.
I think you have to maximize. It was the same thing last year. I think LaMelo I thought he was the best player and the best trade asset because he was like, it's just, that's the league. Like he is what the league is becoming. And it's, of course it's obvious that that's the case right now.
So realistically, are we looking for these draft picks to be the thing that saves the Warriors season?
I mean, that's why we're in such a tough spot, right? Like,
right.
I think if Steph and Draymond and Klay, if their goal is to win like literally next year, and they put a lot of pressure on the front office, it may just be the case that if that's the case and I'm the GM, I am trading those picks. I'm just not going to make a pick to win now because I just don't think it helps anyone. It doesn't help. It's not going to really help the team win because they're rookies. They're just not going to. I just don't think many rookies make a difference. Very, very few rookies make a big difference, right? LaMelo Ball was clearly the best rookie. Charlotte got to the play-in game. I mean, he can't, that's the rookie of the year. He's not saving that franchise in 1 year. So that's like your best case scenario. So is the idea that Davion Mitchell and like a Corey Kispert are going to come in and really move the needle? I just don't see it. It'd be amazing if it happened. I don't see it. I think you gotta take the picks for what they're actually worth, which is the value of those, the value of those slots to another team that's building, right? To an OKC, to a Minnesota, like to these other teams that are trying to build something for the future. To them, there's some value, and they don't need to win next year. They're like trying to win down the road. So, of course, it's tricky because you want a team like that as a partner to value those picks, but you also want to take back a player to win now, right? So that's the really hard part. When you look at the guys who are out there that people have talked about, Beal, Siakam, it's not clear like what their side of it, what those teams want to do, right?
Yeah, and we'll probably transition to this in a second, but I did just want to touch on something about the sort of win now stuff is that when we went to that 8-player rotation at the end of the season for a bunch of reasons, but when we went to that, it was so clear that, by that point in the season and how the season ended, it was so clear that you can't do both. You can't develop some raw rookie for 20 minutes a night in a featured role and also be win now. It's just incongruent.
It's very hard. I mean, we did see
disagree with that. I mean, the Spurs definitely did it for sure.
Okay, but who else?
So
it is possible is what I'm saying. Like,
you see
Tony Parker and Ginobili.
Yeah. So you do see rookies. We saw it like the Sixers had Tyrese Maxey who got minutes. I don't know how much he helped. I mean, he, maybe a little bit. Was Terrence Mann a rookie this year or was it last year? I can't remember. Yeah. So, Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, their third year. I don't know how much they would have helped in their first year. It's pretty rare. Like maybe Desmond Bane is a guy who could have helped a little bit last year, right? It's just asking a lot. It's asking a lot. And beyond that, I don't know. I just personally don't think Davion Mitchell is a guy like, for example, that helps you win that much, because look at his role. He's this 6 foot, basically like what amounts to a 6 foot backup point guard. That's kind of a Patrick Beverley type. He's not going to be Patrick Beverley, prime Patrick Beverley in his first season. You know, is that the player that's going to put us over the top? I don't think that's the issue.
Well, is there any player at 7 that you think would be there that would put us over the top? I mean, that may not just.
No, but that's what I'm saying is that I don't know that any player next year puts us over the top, right?
How close to the top are we, I guess, is the real question.
Yeah, sure. So we got to get closer to the top. But
I mean, because if you have
we were not in the top 8, right?
If you have Steph, Klay, and Dre playing well.
We don't have Klay right away.
Oh yeah, I know, but like, I mean, as we see with the injury bug, it seems like every team goes through some crazy injury in the regular season. It's almost like the regular season doesn't even really matter as much. It's about, can you be healthy for the playoffs? And if the Warriors have Steph, Klay, and Dre healthy and in condition for the playoffs, I mean, you saw the Utah Jazz get incinerated, right? They were the number 1 seed. Like, you know what I mean?
I feel like if everything goes perfectly, which that's itself is the Warriors. We had so much luck for so many years, and this playoff makes it even more obvious how much luck we had with health, right? Up until 2019. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And we weren't even really that lucky.
No, I mean, to some extent, like, to win 3 titles like that in such a short time span, when you didn't have any of your major guys getting hurt for big stretches.
Stop it. Steph Curry's knee was torn to shreds on that Monta sweat. What?
Held together with bubble gum as I was hanging out.
Kevin Durant missed like 30 games when he first got here. Remember that first
season? No. But I mean, in the playoffs.
Right? But no, we had to beat Portland without Steph. Remember, Sean Livingston went like nuts against them. Like,
Kevin Durant missed the entire last 3 playoff series.
Getting away from Evan's main point, which is there's some luck involved in all of this, and the Warriors certainly managed to fit through that gauntlet somehow to come out rosy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's always like the assumption is like, okay, if everybody is super healthy, if Klay is peak form again, God willing, Steph is like able to repeat, what he did last year. Draymond, who knows, maybe he can shoot a little better next year. If all that happened, Poole, gets a little bit better. JTA is kind of in the fold. I think he's, that's a good like 7th, 8th. Oh, I mean, maybe next year he's like a 6th, 7th guy, right?
For sure.
Oubre is probably gone. Seems like he's gone. So you got Wiggins. Now Wiggins had good shooting. I mean, success this season. So it's like, you're also saying like, can Wiggins do it again? Can he shoot 38%?
On more open shots because he's sharing the floor with Klay. Like, I think we're definitely underestimating the domino effect that he's having, like the second greatest shooter of all time on the court at all. Like, the defense has to warp, and we haven't seen that with these new crop of guys. So I think honestly, the biggest thought on my mind is we've seen Steph and Klay have so much dominance, and seeing how KD came back from his injury, I think it's pretty safe to hope at least that we'll get some semblance of the Klay we all know and love. And if that's the case, the ripple down effect, I mean, James Wiseman will have more real estate. Wiggins have more real estate. And then now those same players look a little bit better because they have a little more spacing. And if that's the domino effect, then who wants to play in the playoffs really? You know what I mean? So I'm saying overall, when you say, okay, we should look to make a trade, what specifically are you saying? Look to make a trade for this type of guy? Because it looks like already there's so much there that you say you got to put the word on the short list of contenders.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So, let's say another hypothetical. But the thing is, a lot of these trades just won't happen, or they become impossible because, like, I would have traded, honestly, like before the playoffs, maybe the 7th pick for Kevin Huerter. Now that's not going to happen, right?
Nothing like
I was thinking, nothing like that is going to happen, right? So Miles Bridges is another guy I would have targeted. He played too well, right? So a lot of guys kind of played too well, and they're out of that.
What about Nick Batum type?
Nick Batum or like a type like Nick Batum?
I'm thinking Nick Batum, but I'm thinking of guys in that mold who, swing men who can do a lot of things.
Oh, so here's one, so a couple hypotheticals. I guess one is Gordon Hayward.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, think about what you would have to give up to get Gordon Hayward, and would it be worth it? So let's say you could, it probably would have to be, just for salary purposes, Wiggins.
Yeah.
And then 7 and 14, or is it Wiseman and 7?
Right. Well, he's a little bit damaged goods too,
he is. He is.
So that might be a good bargain find, but Jordan.
It's called the man damaged goods. The man got a family. Y'all call the man damaged goods on live YouTube.
You have to think Jordan probably loves Wiseman, right? I just could imagine that Jordan loves Wiseman. It's just like the pedigree and So that's one that it's something that it's like, I don't think it's going to happen, but that's the kind of thing where I'd kind of probably throw in a lot of chips, because it would be a significant upgrade to have him as your
a little more offense,
third best, second, third best scorer. Like that's pretty compelling. Siakam is the one I guess we could talk about. Like, is that worth throwing in a bunch of trade chips to get a Siakam? I mean, when you think about it, you really are going into the season with Looney and Wiseman as your centers, unless there's someone else.
JTA is a center, but he's not a center. He's 6'6". He's not a center.
So that's asking a lot of Wiseman to. We saw what happened, and he's injured. So remember, like, he maybe misses training camp, or is not fully ready. You can already imagine the PR machine starting. Well, he was, he's getting going, and he missed the summer, and he missed summer league. He's not going to play summer league, right? Maybe he would have otherwise.
That's pretty big.
So that's a question. Like, that's just out there. I don't know what the fix is. You're just praying that he's like better, I guess, or use him more in a JaVale McGee role. But and Kerr kind of was figuring that out, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe. So that's another thing. Just develop them. If you go that route and you don't make any big moves, I guess you could see it one of two ways. One is to use the draft picks on the on guys that you think can help win, like not move the needle greatly, but give you some backup depth. Or the other is to say, like, even if we do that, those guys aren't going to, like, it's not going to make next season necessarily that much different. Mm-hmm. So let's take the guys who develop in a 2 to 3 year time frame, and it's sort of like a Kawhi. Now, there's no Kawhi, right? I'm not saying there's a Kawhi, but it's kind of like, hey, maybe he can help you a little bit. This is kind of how I see Moses Moody, right? So like at 7, it's a guy who I think he can shoot right away, and I think he could defend right away better than a lot of other guys his age, especially, right? He's 19.
Oh, yeah.
He's not going to come in and score 30 points a game. Nobody's asking him to do that. But like, can he do a couple things off the bench, and down the road become something significantly better? Franz Wagner is the other guy, where not a great shooter necessarily. He might turn into a better shooter, but he does everything pretty well. Passes, defends. I think he could help you right away in the same way that some of these other guys can help. Kispert might be able to come in and be a spot-up shooter, but how valuable is that if that's just what it's kind of like a Michael Mulder.
Right.
Like, how much is that on its own?
It's not Michael. It's like a Michael Mulder.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Phoenix took Cam Johnson, which I thought at 10, which I thought was a really bad pick. So for my philosophy, that was a terrible pick. It was just a reach. I don't know, like, who else was going to take him that high. He's turned into a nice role player. I don't think there's like a super high ceiling with Cam Johnson, but I can't say he doesn't help that team. He's helping them win. So if the front office thinks that Corey Kispert is that guy, so be it. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe there's some kind of value with some of these guys come in with like a special skill that they see. I just hope they don't kind of like hem and haw or do like half, sort of like try to please everybody, because sometimes when you have like this team that's like they're run by committee, there's no vision. That's kind of like, I think overall that's the issue a lot of us have with the Warriors front office, right? It's like it's not clear exactly what the vision is all the time. So
look up in the sky and see the banners. You know what their vision is?
They had that,
5 straight trips to the finals, so we don't know what their vision is. The disrespect.
No, but they're definitely like, in some sense, you can really see that the fingerprint of Schlenk, right, and Jerry West.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because you see it in Atlanta. Like he immediately went out and got Trey, Kevin Huerter, like Hunter, like he's rebuilding the same type of thing. And what have we been doing the past 5 years?
Being injured.
So
we've been hurt.
So I guess in some sense, like I'd almost have like more respect if they made a bold move on draft night and took even if it wasn't Moses Moody, like a Keon Johnson, like a guy who has electric athletic profile and super exciting. And they're like, we're going to develop this guy. I've compared him to Latrell Sprewell. Like he's not Spree, but that's the kind of mold. Like maybe if you got a guy who you could envision in a few years, he's just like, he could be a really much better defender than Davion, like when it's all said and done. But so that would be like kind of cool. Like if they went out and did something, it would surprise me. I don't think they're going to do that, but I kind of would like to see.
I feel like they might have learned some lessons this year, though. Like Kerr hasn't really faced a lot of coaching adversity before, so I think now, especially he's doing the Olympics with Pop right now. Like I get the feeling like he's going to sort of sit down and like try and reevaluate a little bit. And I know that may not be the going internet theory on Steve Kerr, but I do think that they sort of realize like you can't have one foot in two different worlds, because they really tried that last year where they were like, we're going to win now. And also, hey, we're going to develop James Wiseman. We're going to have our cake and eat it too. And then it was like, you dropped your cake and like Oubre is going to walk. And he also kind of sucked. And like,
I have a question though. Like I'm looking at all the teams like who are not in the playoffs, right? Like the Lakers, they were the title favorites, and then Anthony Davis got hurt and they got trashed. The Brooklyn Nets, title favorites, then Kyrie Irving and Jimmy Turner got hurt and they get trashed. And there's so many franchises where if one of your top 2 guys goes down, you're instantly dead, right? And so I don't understand why the same courtesy isn't given to the Warriors, considering the fact that their second best player was down for 2 years straight.
Because he might still be down is the answer. Because he might still be down is the answer.
The whole next year?
I mean,
please say that out loud so we can record this. Say Klay Thompson come back next year.
I'll say it out loud.
I hope it's not 3 years in a row.
Right?
No, but what I'm saying is that they're already telling us that Wiseman and Thompson won't be available for the full year. And what that means is that when they're coming back, they're physically ready, but there's still going to be a development curve of them getting back up to game speed and game shape. And assuming that Klay Thompson can return off not just the one that Kevin Durant so miraculously recovered for, but another one stacked on top. He didn't even get to the point where Kevin Durant is now before he blew his knee.
Right.
That's a lot more.
So you're advocating we should trade Klay is what you're saying. We should trade Klay Thompson.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm just.
I think you got 1 foot in, 1 foot out, honestly, because either we say, Klay, we're giving you all this money. You're a future Hall of Famer. We need you, and without you, we can't win a championship. Like Michael didn't want Scotty. Scotty didn't want Michael. You know what I'm saying?
You got to go. I think you got to go all in with. I mean, it's
you can't.
You got to go all in.
So if you trade him or you don't, if you don't trade him, you're expecting him to play next year, sometime around the playoffs, right?
What do you think? What do you guys think? Do you think opening night, Looney or Wiseman is going to start? I guess you're saying Wiseman is out in the beginning, so it's definitely Looney.
I think
so. Or Marquise Chris.
Oh, that'd be good.
But he's a free agent, right? Didn't we waive him?
Yes, but he belongs to us in our hearts.
Give him that full mid-level.
I'm just curious because I think probably Looney should just be the starter next year, and bring Wiseman off the bench, because I just don't even think they can play the way Wiseman. It's not Kerr's system, right? Like he's just not ready to do that Warriors thing at center.
Yeah.
He could come in a JaVale role, but he's not Pachulia, right? He's not Bogut. Like, he's just not gonna to be that guy.
Well, and Bogut was the guy that called that out. Remember, he had on his podcast, Bogut was talking about, the type of center touches that you get in Steve Kerr's system are a certain type. You're not going to be the sort of player where James Wiseman would come in and get developed like a main profile center, like Bogut was in Milwaukee, for example.
Right.
And I think maybe that Kerr is now seeing like, well, I need to adjust for my personnel a little bit. And Wiseman is, he's good and he can actually do a lot of those things in those systems, but like you shouldn't need to give classes on screen setting to a guy. Just use him how he wants to be used. You draft a
2 games in college,
athletic center with a 3-point shot, and then you throw the ball to him in the post, which is like his worst shot.
But he had 2 games in college though, and he was like 19 and got sick immediately, missed training camp during the COVID year. Like, I don't understand why we can't teach young players to grow. That's my concern.
There's some of that's true. I mean, yes, 3 games, but like LaMelo Ball played 12 games in the NBL and then shut it down. And
do you know who his daddy is? Do you know his older brother is?
I'm just saying that, like,
who's James Wiseman's daddy? Name his daddy. Go.
LeVar Ball.
No, James Wiseman's daddy. What's
James Wiseman's dad?
Yeah.
I don't know what his dad's name is.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. LaMelo Ball grew up in a basketball boot camp from the age of 3.
I mean, but it's not like Wiseman was not playing basketball. Like, he obviously was playing basketball his whole life. So I'm just saying, like, whether it was 3 games or 30 games in college playing for Anthony Hardaway, I don't know. Like, would it have been much better? Now he's played, 40 games, 50 games?
And he was coming on pretty strong.
He was coming on real strong.
So it'll be interesting. I mean, it'll just be interesting to me to see, like, does Kerr ever do a different system? Do they stick with the same system and Wiseman just gets better at it? That would be awesome. I mean, if that happens, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about Kerr being a sort of inexperienced coach too is that he's never really had to bring up a rookie. He's been this sort of loosey-goosey manager who just has the veterans come in and sort of run the show, and he's got the philosophy and everything. But developing a rookie, especially as a main feature piece, is like that's a totally new gig for him as a coach.
They should hire some assistant. Oh wait, they did hire some assistant coach. Oh snap!
But
I don't developing players.
I mean, to be fair, like, I don't know how much the head coach is the guy who's directly developing guys, right? Like, all the time. They just have so much to it.
I was more thinking about like playing time and role and how to integrate.
For sure, it's the highest profile guy, right? Like, they never had a number 2 pick, and when you have a number 2 pick, that guy has to play 7 and 14. The expectations are going to be different for that guy. But yeah, when you get a number 2 pick and you make him out to be like this franchise center, generational center, or whatever Joe Lacob called them, that's a lot of pressure to put on him.
Especially as probably the hardest position. I mean, some argue point guard, but the big man, especially in today's game, is so hard to play. You know what I mean? You're required to do so many things. Like, not only are you got to do your big man thing, but you better have a shot. You better get to the 3-point shooter and corral the guards. So I think that what we saw with Wiseman, obviously we didn't win a championship last year. So in that regard, it's a failure, right? But only one team can win every year. And when I look at what's going to happen next year, I would assume that if Wiseman doesn't get better, that would be very, very alarming to me. You know what I mean? And so if we're looking at, hey, this is what Wiseman was with the worst possible start to your career you can have, he'll probably be like that for the rest of his career. I think it's just insane, personally. So I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, considering it was so hard for him that first year. I mean, considering the fact that the Warriors didn't even know what was happening with Klay when they drafted him. They were like, wait, Klay's hurt? Oh, and to the board, the number 2 pick, the Warriors. It was like, wait, what? Like, the whole season got flipped upside down. And so I'm guessing, to me, it just sounds like, I feel like there was so much winning going on recently that the standard has been raised so hard for this franchise, so high for this franchise, that now the things that fail, that crush every other team in the league, when it happens to the Warriors, it's a failure on the front office's part. But every other franchise, when you lose your second best player and your rookie can't play during COVID, unless he's like LaMelo Ball, the chosen one, which Evan pointed out, I give him credit for that. But like to look at it and go, wow, why is the front office better? I would just love to see what they can do with a little bit of health. Just a little bit of health. I would love it.
I think, what's your like sort of reasonable expectations for them in terms of like where they fall in the standings? Speaking of that, like Vegas, I've seen these odds where we're like 8-1 to win the title. And I know people pointed out it's Vegas odds, it's like weird or whatever, but that seems like,
I think that was me actually. So those are betting odds. They somehow, I know that they actually calculate actual percentage chances, but that's not what sets the odds. They're trying to move money.
Yeah, it's weird.
So, but that seemed favorable to me for sure.
I mean, I guess do they know something don't know?
I think that there's a lot of Daniel Hardees out there who are like, guys, look at this roster and like look at the trash that's like getting featured in the playoffs this year. Sorry, they're not trash, they're professional basketball players. But the point is that, if you see it from a certain standpoint, like just having Steph and Klay, even if Klay is 38-year-old Kyle Korver with a better shot, he's still like valuable. Yeah. Draymond Green, he was like one of the biggest boosts to our offense, and he wouldn't shoot the ball. I mean, he like misses floaters. Like, adding a shooter to that squad, and like we were saying, I think Wiseman will be better next year. I think Wiggins will at least maintain, if not be better. Like Poole looks good. I don't know what snatched Eric Pascal's basketball soul, but I think he could be better too if his knee's healthy again. I think there's a lot of factors that maybe somebody like you and I, Evan, may not exactly agree with and line up precisely with, but there's a lot of sort of historical inertia here where it's basketball. It's all about the top level talent. And if you have Steph Curry, like there's always a chance.
Yeah, it's interesting. It seems like there's a lot of parity, or a lot more parity now. Part of that is there were so many injuries. I mean, if you think about next year, I don't know if Jamal Murray is out the whole year, but
tough loss, huge loss.
Well, yeah, and remember next year is another. We're still on the shortened schedule, so this offseason is going to again be very, very short before the season starts.
I mean, you have Memphis, like Jaren Jackson missed almost the whole year, so he's going to be back.
Kawhi's gone next year, probably.
Portland. I'm just trying to think of the teams that we, maybe we're going to be like. Portland is kind of who knows? They could be blown up by the time. Yeah. Dallas also is already like sort of like it's in the process of some kind of weird meltdown there. So who's to say like what the league is going to be look like? I mean, to some extent, like if you kind of buy the idea that like, hey, the Warriors have enough talent right now to be like 4th or 5th seed, let's say generically.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Then going into the draft, to me, that says, hey, why not take a little bit bigger of a swing? And next year, like 4th or 5th seed, getting to the second round, that might be good. Like that's going to be pretty cool if we could do that. And then in the second or third year of these guys that you get at 7 and 14, now maybe you're getting like more of a renewal where Steph and Klay kind of start to take more of a back seat, and you have these younger guys who are ready to step up. Maybe Wiseman by then is stepping up more, and you have, kind of a extended window. I guess that's kind of how I would optimistically look at it.
I feel like the Warriors are playing with house money in a sense. I know they desperately want to win, but if you were a franchise that said, okay, we lost Kevin Durant and went into salary cap hell, and we got D'Angelo Russell, how do we get out of this? And you said, okay, on draft night in 2021, you have 2 picks plus Andrew Wiggins and the number 2 pick from last year. You'd be like, well, damn it, they better win something. Shit, like, what else do you want?
But they do need to win. They need like even if they take Davion Mitchell and Corey Kispert, they need those picks to hit. And so this is sort of like the outcome is going to matter. It's really going to matter, in a year or two.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you don't have to come back next year and tell us how wrong the front office was again.
I hope not. I hope to come back and say I was wrong and they were right.
Where was the ball in this draft?
Or we're both right. They were right. They did what I said and it worked.
That's the best. Yeah. We take Moody and he explodes.
Right. So as you know, Evan, we're going to have some other people on, and probably Patrick Murray next. And you had something about Obi. Exactly. Can you tell Patrick a message about Obi, just briefly, real quick? Just what you want to ask him?
No, the best thing I could say is if this rumor that the Knicks are going to trade Obi for Sexton, then Obi can go to Cleveland and learn from Larry Nance, who was the main comp that I had for Obi in the first place. And I think that would be poetic justice.
Patrick, you're going to love this one, buddy.